Mr. Chris De Souza.
Sir, fiscal policies are important, but I am glad the Minister for Finance also emphasized Singapore's unique social compact, how the government is partnering people to build a caring and inclusive society and encouraging people to volunteer and give back to society. Because the social compact of any society impacts how citizens cooperate with each other within a pluralistic society, people will have different views about what the social compact should be. Politics and debates in this House therefore reflect what those differing views are, and at the close of the debates, policies impacting society are formalized into law. Therefore, giving voice to different views within a single political party is essential for Singapore. Indeed, it can be a major advantage. Why? Because it is important that there continues to be a broad slate of policy options for consideration for Singapore. Why? Because the world is changing. Geopolitics is being shaken up. Disruptive technology is rapidly advancing. What used to work in the past may not work in the future, but change itself is not new. Singapore has had to adapt her economic strategies. According to the book Dynamic Governance, in the 1970s, as change was more gradual and predictable, planning and predetermining what needed to be done was important for Singapore's survival. But when things changed more rapidly because of globalization and instantaneous communication, Singapore needed to go beyond that to sensing and responding to emerging opportunities. What then happened? When that happened, the role of the government shifted from directing and allocating resources to facilitating the exploitation of opportunities. As a small island city-state, Singapore faces unique challenges. What worked in other countries may not be suitable or may not need to be adapted before being applied to Singapore. As Mr. Lim Siong Guan wrote, I quote, "Singapore is unique in its demographics, its small size and its lack of natural resources. We cannot become a first world economy simply by following what others are doing. As we look at the successes elsewhere, the critical questions we continuously have to ask are not what they are doing or how they are doing it, but why they are doing it." Unquote. Because of the rapidly changing world and our unique challenges, it is critical that we be able to draw from a broad slate of policies and avoid strict adherence to theories. Theories can be assistive, but they are just that, theories. Theories have limitations and thus cannot be overly rigidly adhered to. Dogmatic adherence to theories or rigid ideology also lacks the ability to capture the multifaceted complexities of democracies. The Financial Times article entitled "Capitalism and Democracy, the Strain is Showing" pointed out tensions between liberal democracy and global capitalism, citing Harvard University professor Danny Roderick as stating, I quote, "Democracy, national sovereignty, and global and economic integration are mutually incompatible. We can combine any two of the three, but never have all three simultaneously and in full," unquote. If he is correct, then balancing the tensions between these concepts, being democracy, national sovereignty, and global economic integration, cannot be achieved through strict adherence to dogma. Therefore, aiming for theoretical purism is not the goal. Rather, aiming to do what is best for Singapore is drawing from a broad slate of possibilities. I believe that this is what the governing party in Singapore must continue to do. Besides being able to draw from a broad slate of possibilities, there is value in housing different views within a single political party. Different perspectives make us reflect on things from a different angle. For example, during the recent debate on the National Parks Board Amendment Bill, Engineer Lee Bee-Wah raised concerns of safety and that of a hygienic living environment for her residents, citing multiple unsupervised cat episodes as attracting big rats and the need for relevant authorities to be trained in handling snake sightings near residences. Mr. Lewis Ng took a different view on the matter, suggesting that the removal of snakes which eat rats contributed to the problem of a rising number of rats. Such an exchange is a real plus, a real advantage. Such an exchange sheds light on the same issue through different perspectives, sparking new ideas and increasing the range of possible solutions to be explored. Coupling the ability to house members of differing views with the need for cooperation among members of a single party, the policies and directions that come out from the deliberative process is not necessarily one characterized by compromise, but one of possibility through persuasion. This is a win-win, provided, of course, those involved in the debate want what is best for Singapore. The need to compromise for the sake of political dividend does not necessarily lead to the best politics or policies. For example, in order to get bipartisan support to pass the legislation, the US tax code often contains loopholes due to political bargains that needed to be struck between the Democrats that desire higher rates for richer Americans and Republicans who prefer to reduce taxes for the rich. The focus, one can argue, is not on the effectiveness or efficiency of the final product, but on the political compromise. A New York Times article entitled "A Tax Code of Politics, Not Reason" says that, and I quote, "This compromise has left us with a loophole-riddled code that isn't very good at raising money. Compared to other developed countries, the United States doesn't collect much tax at all." At least that was the state of things in April 2012, but such is compromise. In my humble view, the better way is to focus on possibilities and persuasion rather than loose compromises. In order to do this, we should not label a person as right or left, liberal or conservative. A person can have different views on different issues and should not be limited to representing the right or left view. If we label people in this manner, the focus shifts from what is best for Singapore to whether or not a view conforms to a certain ideological view. Because there is no such pressure to fit or not fit a certain label in Singapore, I feel the freedom to decide based on what I think is the best course for Singapore on the issues that come before this House. In some matters, my view could be categorized as more right. For example, my hard stance against recreational drug use because of its harm to society could be characterized as right-leaning. On a different issue, my view could be categorized as being more left. For example, advocating for the Prevention of Human Trafficking Bill in order to protect vulnerable workers in Singapore from being exploited in a capitalist market. Therefore, what is important is not whether my views are ideologically right or left, but rather I had the freedom within the government party to act or voice a view in accordance with what I thought was best for Singapore. This has strengthened my humble belief that in Singapore, those elected must possess political ambidexterity. They must deploy right or left-leaning policies in accordance with what Singapore needs for the long term, based on a defensible and robust system of values and ethics. A person should not be pigeonholed left or right. In the course of the debates, there will be times when we debate morality and our interpretation of it. That is important, and we should not shy away from it. Nevertheless, it is important that politics in Singapore does not move into single-issue politics. Yes, the issues are very important. Yes, the issues have wide-ranging impact on many different sectors. But the running of a country cannot be reduced to a single issue. Worse still, examples from jurisdictions around the world have shown that some of those who push single-issue politics focus on polarizing fault lines, exploiting them for a political purpose, and deepening divisions in society. For example, some pockets in the political spheres in Germany and the United Kingdom and other countries have stoked interracial and interreligious tensions by running on racial supremacy or anti-religion lines. In Germany, in September 2017, the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, became the first far-right party to enter Germany's national parliament since the 1950s. It won 94 seats to become the third strongest party in the Bundestag, Germany's lower house of parliament. The AfD quite arguably ran elections on an anti-immigration, anti-Islam ticket. In UK, the Britain First Party ran on an anti-immigration and openly nationalist agenda. In 2016, Jada Fransen, the deputy leader, was convicted for religiously aggravated harassment. Why do I raise this? The answer is this. Irreconcilable division breeds an environment of politics of extremes. This inevitably creates conflict. Policies become political bargains that compromise on effectiveness. Politicians engage in brinkmanship. I would not want this to happen in Singapore for the sake of our social compact. In the United States, partisan brinkmanship causes shutdowns of government. This impacts the lives of many. During the 16-day shutdown in 2013, almost $4 billion in tax refunds were delayed, and homes for 8,000 rural families were stalled. According to the Office of Management and Budget, the US lost an estimated $2 to $6 billion of economic growth during the 16-day shutdown in 2013. An October 2018 article in the Asia News Monitor about Bosnia-Herzegovina reported that the country faced a collapsing healthcare system, struggling public infrastructure, regressing education, catastrophic and accelerating brain drain. A lot to solve. Instead of meaningfully engaging these issues, the political discourse centered in nationalist brinkmanship and paranoia. Main campaign issues among nationalist parties were, quote, either we're going to kill the other side or we're going to keep you from getting killed by the other side, unquote. In Britain, some think that the fear of a disorderly Brexit might be used to squeeze the deal through in Parliament or to help Britain in its negotiations with the European Union. Therefore, sir, from what the world has shown us, we need in Singapore to refrain from the politics of brinkmanship. Further, we need to be able to collect a collage of differing views under the umbrella of a single party, thereby avoiding sole issue politics. This way, even hard issues and issues touching morality and ethics can be debated in a respectful and productive way. Such an approach has a further advantage. It avoids the need for politics by referendum, since differing views are already represented in the legislature. BBC Radio recently aired an excellent program just last weekend entitled The Real Story, Are Referendums Ever a Good Idea? In that program, a quote on Brexit from the expert being interviewed caught my attention. Caroline Vernalen from Democracy International explained, I quote, I think what is definitely never a good idea is putting a general program to a vote if it contains multiple questions, the way Brexit was actually a broad reform program, unquote. As representatives of the constituents we serve, we are entrusted with the mandate to make difficult decisions on policy or morality for our country. Therefore, when we are faced with tough decisions, it is, in my view, much better to debate the ideas respectfully and holistically in Parliament and decide in Parliament what the path to take for Singapore is, rather than passing the buck back to the good people who entrusted us with the decision-making duties in the first place. So I come back to this central issue of a social compact, which was a major plank in Minister Heng's speech on Budget 2019, which I support. A valuable ingredient for an effective social compact is to ensure cooperation within society by reflecting and giving voice to differing views in Parliament. This is healthy and avoids the politics of extremes. Undergirding this must be an openness to different views and new evidence, even as one holds strong positions on certain subjects and issues. As an example, sir, some fellow members of this House would know my hard stance against drugs and the need to criminalize the trafficking as well as the consumption of drugs. This is because I humbly remain convinced that drugs are harmful, especially to the consumers and the communities around them. However, if objective and unagendered data shows that consuming of illicit drugs is not harmful, then I will review the data and test my conclusions again. This is because all of us here in this chamber owe it to the Singaporeans we serve to form the most accurate conclusion. For the record, as regards drugs, I am still of the view that we need to criminalize consumption. Sir, for this year's debate on the budget statement, I decided to focus on social compact, which was one of the foundational points in Minister Heng's speech. On that topic, I respectfully seek to persuade this House that politics in Singapore should remain about possibilities and persuasion, always with a view on what is best for Singapore, long term. It should be carried out under a broad umbrella where differing views can flourish and consensus built on a foundation of ethics, stewardship, and values. It should never lead to brinkmanship, single-issue politics, or hollow short-term compromise. This is a place where policy and societal morality is charted. If we can all do it right, then unity will prevail. If we can all do it right, our social compact as a people will be robustly defended and protected. Indeed, it is worth protecting, it is worth defending. Thank you.